They said I would never be anything, and I smiled like it didn't bruise. My name is Rhea Langford. I grew up in a town where people still wave from trucks, where the river smells like wet iron, and where my family's opinions weighed more than the courthouse clock. My father ran Langford Steelworks with my older brother, Owen. My mother kept the books, which meant she also kept score. I was the daughter who studied design and operations at night after waitressing. I was the one who believed the plant could be cleaner, leaner, kinder to the town that fed it. At Sunday dinner, they staged my future on the table like a casserole. Real work is on the floor, my father said, carving pot roast into strict portions. Not in notebooks. Owen laughed, pushing a basket of rolls toward me as if generosity could soften the edge. My mother dabbed a napkin to her lipstick and asked if I had a boyfriend yet, as if love would prove I could manage anything. They talked about promotions, about contracts, about expansion. I was a child pressed against the glass, seeing everything, holding nothing. The first wound came dressed like help. When I drafted a plan to cut the plant's energy costs by 30%, I asked for a chance to pilot it. You'd shut us down for 6 weeks, my father said. You don't know real schedules. You don't know payroll. He tapped my proposal with 2 fingers, thin wedding band flashing. You're clever, Rhea, but clever doesn't keep men fed. He gave my pages back, creased and warmer from his hand, like something rescued from a fire and judged too charred to keep. I pretended it was fine. I laughed at myself in the bathroom mirror at home, that clean rectangle of light where no one could be disappointed but me. I kept working at the diner, then took a shift stocking shelves at Wilton's Hardware. I paid down my student loans $5 at a time. When I suggested again, months later, that the plant's old compressors and gas-fired furnaces were eating profit, Owen told me the only thing I was qualified to optimize was the salad station. The humiliation lasted longer than anger. It lived in the body differently, heavier, like air trapped under ice. Family gatherings sharpened into rehearsals. My father bragged about a city contract the plant had nearly won. My mother asked how many tips I made on Friday nights. I nodded, poured water, breathed evenly, kept my voice smooth. At night I lay awake, counting the reasons I could leave, and then counting the reasons I should stay. Both lists were long and honest. On a Tuesday in late September, the town council posted an agenda for a new climate initiative. The county wanted to retrofit every public building within 2 years. Schools, the courthouse, the library that smelled like old paper and hope. They would choose a primary contractor to design and manage it, then hire local suppliers. The notice was short, but the language was careful, like a lock shaped for a key I could build. I stood beneath the street lamp outside the library, the flyer trembling slightly in my hand. The light hummed. A moth made frantic circles around the bulb. I read the posting again, then again, letting the line settle. Notebooks, I thought, can hold the weight of a future if the hand refuses to shake. The first spark of tension was simple. I decided not to ask for permission. I formed a company with a cheap name and an honest goal. Alder Row Energy. It sounded like a line of trees along a road, slim trunks holding their ground in the wind. I registered it in a borrowed office above a barber shop, where the floor leaned gently toward the window and the radiator ticked like a patient metronome. There was a desk with a missing drawer, a second-hand laptop, and a potted plant that refused to die. I spent days reading procurement manuals like love letters, learning how public money moved, who signed, who checked, who returned forms for missing commas. I mapped stakeholders on sticky notes across the wall. I sketched timelines, budgets, risks. I called school principals and facility managers, asked about leaky ceilings and rattling vents. I listened to the tones of their voices when they described classrooms too hot in September and too cold in January. I wrote those tones into my plan like another cost. The world narrowed to the work. Nights, I delivered groceries to cover software fees. I learned to sleep fast and wake soft. I carried a notebook into the shower and ink bled down the page when steam got too close. In the diner, between refilling coffee and dropping checks, I reviewed HVAC data on my phone, refusing to let the screen go dark. It was lonely, and it was good. No one asked when I would get married or reminded me of cousins who were managers by 28. Family still asked me to Sunday dinner. They asked because tradition asked. I went because grace demanded. In our kitchen where the cabinets were a tired maple, my mother introduced me to a new neighbor as my daughter who's figuring things out. Owen described the city bid he was chasing on a new municipal garage and winked at me, light as a pat. No contracts hiding in those notebooks yet, he said. My father did not look up. He buttered bread with the care he never gave my ideas. I measured my breath, the way a diver measures distance to the surface. I'm working on something, I said, voice even. We'll see. I learned who doubted me by who smiled. People do not hide disbelief, they wrap it in concern. You're brave, a cousin said at a birthday party. You know most businesses fail. The cake was white with strawberries, sweet and soft. I took a small piece and let the frosting press against the roof of my mouth. Some do, I said. I saved the rest for later and threw it away in the dark. The bid window opened like a door I had been leaning against for months. My proposal weighed 11 ounces and 10 years of wanting. I walked it to the clerk's office with a calm face and quick feet. The clerk stamped my packet without looking down. The sound was thick and final. Outside, I sat on the courthouse steps and let myself feel the earth under the concrete, the slow, cool insistence of something older than my fear. When I told my family I had submitted a proposal, my father laughed once, short and efficient. Government work demands scale, he said. You are a one-woman idea. We're a shop that meets delivery dates. Owen added, you'll learn. Maybe that's good. I cleared the table, running water until it warmed. My hands moved through the sink in quiet arcs. In the reflection of the window, my face looked composed the way a locked door looks plain. That night, I wrote a promise in the margins of my own plan. I would not argue with them. I would not perform my worth like a show. I would build something that would speak in a language they understood, schedules, deliverables, signatures. The proof arrived in a plain envelope on a Wednesday, the kind of day that forgets its own name. Alder Row Energy had been awarded the county's retrofit contract. The letter used words like responsibility and primary contractor, and the last line matched the beat of my heart. Local manufacturers and installers would be solicited as subcontractors under my management. Preferences would be given to firms with existing community roots. I held the letter by its corners and set it on the desk under the plant that would not die. I read it again. Nothing changed. The radiator exhaled. Downstairs, a man laughed in the barber chair. I pressed my palm to the page, not to claim it, but to feel its cool proof. By afternoon, the county's project manager called to schedule a kickoff. Her name was Val. She had worked in public works for 15 years and spoke like someone who had learned to move through storms without announcing the weather. You'll need vendors, she said. I know you know that. I'll send the list of local firms. Langford Steelworks is on it. They've got fabrication capacity that fits the scope. I thanked her and wrote the words slowly, to make every letter honest. After we hung up, I sat a long time. The truth landed in patient stages. We would be building ductwork runs, enclosures, custom housings, and mounting frames. We would need steel. The plant that had called my plans a risk would, if it wanted this work, sign under my letterhead. I called only one person that afternoon, and it wasn't my family. It was the woman who lived 2 doors down from my apartment, the one who made soup when the first cold settled in. Her name was Teresa Alvarez. She was a retired procurement officer for the school district, sharp as a paper edge. She had watched me carry boxes upstairs from my new office and had said, without preface, include liquidated damages in your contracts. People respect clocks. I brought her the award letter and a bag of clementines. She placed the pages on her tablecloth like a napkin for an honored guest and read with a frown that meant concentration, not doubt. It's clean, she said. They will test you, but this is clean. She tapped the last paragraph. And you will test them back. She taught me how to write a subcontract that held like a bridge. Clear milestones, progress payments, quality checkpoints, cure periods, and penalties that bit only when bidden first. Never threaten, she said, pouring us tea. Specify. We drafted the vendor solicitation together. We set pre-bid meetings and site walks for the schools. We required safety records and insurance certificates, shop drawings and shop silence were needed. We invited questions, and we answered them with what Teresa called generous edges, firm centers. For every vendor, we underlined the same principle: community dollars should land where community kids learn. I sent the package to Langford Steelworks last. I wrote the email without poetry. Scope, schedule, terms. I addressed it to the general inbox, not to my father or my brother, because this was not a family conversation. It was work. The reply came from Owen the next morning, clipped and cautious. Will attend the pre-bid. Please confirm times. No curiosity, no apology. That was fine. Curiosity and apology are expensive in a house like ours. Clarity is cheaper and stronger. I exhaled into the quiet of my office and found, in the silence, a new sound: resolve, low and steady. The letter on my desk did more than vindicate. It arranged the stage. The past was not invited, but it might buy a ticket and sit in the back row. I could feel it there, arms crossed, waiting to be wrong. I won't perform, I told the plant, the radiator, the long window that looked out over the barber's striped pole. I'll deliver. It was a promise without heat. The best kind. The pre-bid meeting was set for a Thursday in the gym of Ransom Elementary, the same place where I had once stood with a recorder in the 6th grade band. Blue tape marked the basketball key. The bleachers were closed. Chairs faced a projection screen that displayed a clean agenda and a timeline in calm fonts. Contractors filtered in with clipboards and quiet nods. The floor smelled faintly of varnish and crayons. Owen arrived with 2 foremen I recognized from summers the first had spent sweeping the plant. He looked past me and then at me, choosing the second option the way you choose a lane when the light turns green. My father came 5 minutes later, suit jacket carrying the polite weight of years. He scanned the room until his eyes found me at the front, beside Val. His face did not change, and that restraint felt like loud thunder on the horizon. Val opened the meeting with a welcome and a statement about the county's goals. I presented scope and schedule, milestones, the submittal process. I spoke in the same even tone I had practiced alone, where the only witness was the patient plant. When the time came for questions, hands rose, practical and professional. We discussed lead times and staging, coordination and noise restrictions during testing week. I answered every question on its merit, not on the memory of a dinner table. Owen lifted a hand and kept it there until I nodded. What are the payment terms? He asked, steady. We've had prime stretch 90 days. Net 30 on approved invoices, I said. Progress payments tied to verified milestones. Retainage at 5% with defined release points. Liquidated damages only for unexcused delays. He looked at Val and then back at me. And if a vendor disagrees with a finding? Cure period of 10 business days, I said. Then mediation, if needed, before any penalties. Everything written. Nothing shouted. The gym held the pause. Someone scribbled notes. Val watched me the way a captain watches a reef line, not because she doubts it, but because that is her job. After the meeting, vendors queued to schedule site walks. My father approached last. He stood a measured distance away, like a man reading a gravestone of a stranger who shares his name. Rhea, he said, voice even. May we talk? Val excused herself with a soft nod. The foreman drifted toward the exit, hands in pockets. The gym hummed with the quiet that follows intellect ion. My father's eyes were almost my exact color, which made the conversation feel like a mirror. You've done well, he said, each word with its own space. This is significant work. It is, I said. We're glad to have Langford Steelworks interested. He waited. I let the silence stand. He had taught me that silence can pry truth open, but I had learned that it can also protect it. We can meet the scope, he said. On schedule. I know, I answered. The terms are the terms. If you submit, we'll evaluate on the criteria like every other firm. He nodded once. The nod was a hinge. And if we win, he said, we will be reporting to you. To Alder Row, I said. To the contract. To the project. I let the distinction sit, then added, because it was true and necessary, to me, in the way a subcontractor reports to a prime. Yes. Owen stepped up beside him, jaw set, eyes careful. We make steel, he said. We don't kneel. The work asks for coordination, I said, voice quiet. Not kneeling. My father looked past me to the faded banners on the wall, state tournaments from years that wore dust well. When he looked back, something older had landed in his face. Not pride. Not defeat. A recognition that the world had moved and he had either to move with it or be moved by it. You said we would never do this, he said, almost to himself. He did not mean the project. He meant the conversation. You said I would never be successful, I said, matching his restraint. We were both wrong about something. It could have turned sharp there, but it did not. He held my eyes for 3 breaths, then offered his hand. His palm was rough, familiar. I shook it once, firmly, like a person who is not rehearsing but simply present. We'll submit, he said. On the merits. Good, I answered. We'll see you at the site walk. Justice did not crack the air. It settled like dust in a shaft of gym light, visible only if you cared to see it. I gathered the sign-in sheets and felt the stillness that follows a storm that never broke because everyone chose not to raise their voices. Langford Steelworks won a portion of the work, not all of it, which felt exactly right. They fabricated housings for the new air handlers and the custom brackets for the library's reading room, where the ceiling arched like a held breath. Another shop made duct sections. A third handled enclosures. Teresa smiled at the awards list and said, balance is a kind of kindness. The project moved like a river after spring thaw, steady, a little loud, full of small hazards that could be navigated with attention. On some mornings I walked the empty halls of the middle school before crews arrived, my steps echoing, the sun pushing thin gold through the blinds. The room smelled of paper and marker caps and the slight, tangy edge of fresh metal. When students returned after break, I stood near the front office and watched them shrug out of jackets and move toward warmth they didn't need to think about. My father came to the library once, clipboard in hand. He checked the hangars his crew had placed, nodded to his foreman, spoke in that low voice men use when the work matters more than the performance. He saw me and paused, adjusting his glasses though they were already straight. The brackets fit, he said. They look good, I answered. We stood together under quiet that had no old injury in it. There are silences that accuse, and there are silences that rest. This one rested. At home, I moved the plant to a sunnier window. It had put out 2 new leaves on a thin green stem. Teresa brought over a pot of lentil soup and a folder with notes I didn't know I needed. "You'll want to document lessons learned," she said. "People mistake victory for a period when it's a semicolon. Keep going." My mother called one evening to ask about the school air, not about my work. "The 3rd grade teacher says her room doesn't smell like dust anymore," she said, with a careful lightness. We talked about recipes, then about my niece's science project, then, at the edge of goodbye, she added, "Your father sleeps better." It was an offering wrapped in weather. "I'm glad," I said. Pay applications flowed. Bank balances settled and grew. I paid off the last of my student loans and stood in the kitchen holding the confirmation like a bird you release from your hands. I did not post a thing online. I took a deep breath and washed the cup I had been using, slow circles in warm water, understanding privately that sometimes the best sound is the absence of clatter. The contract files for Langford Steelworks were precise and boring in the way I had come to love. They showed milestones met, deficiencies corrected quickly, and a final retainage release accompanied by a punch list with nothing to punch. When I signed the last pay certificate, I pressed the pen to the page and felt only the weight of ink and paper, not victory's flair. I had learned that pride can be quiet and still be complete. One Saturday, after the last school passed its commissioning tests, I walked to the river. Morning light laid a calm bar of silver across the water. Children skipped stones near the boat ramp. I watched a flat rock kiss the surface 3 times and then sink, leaving a circle that grew and grew until the river forgot it. A small mercy moved through me, a loosening where tension had once made a home. I thought of the sentence I had written in my margins months before. I would not argue. I would deliver. It had been a map when every road sign turned me around. It had been a railing when the stairs were dark. It had been enough. My father invited me to dinner the next day, the kind that did not come with agendas. We ate stew my mother had seasoned perfectly, and my niece asked if she could help on a future project, the kind where you write the plan and check the air. I told her yes. My father passed me the salt and said, without preface, "You built something that helps." There was no apology in it, and I didn't need one. Some acknowledgments are truer when they are plain. After dishes, I walked home through streets that knew my steps. I unlocked my office and sat at the desk with the missing drawer. I opened a new file, typed Alder Row Energy, Year 2, and started the outline for a program to weatherize homes for families who could not afford upgrades. The radiator ticked. The plant held its leaves up to the last of the day. If this story touched you, share your thoughts below. And subscribe for more stories of quiet revenge.